So let's have a look at some key business functions and the repositioning strategies that fall under each of them. So there are 4 key business functions that you'll need to know, and they are the processes within human resources, finance, marketing, and operations carried out to meet business objectives and goals. So with finance, of course, it's all about money. So you're looking at profitability, growth, and liquidity. Those are the objectives that you have in the finance function. Now, an example of a finance repositioning strategy may be implementing a credit policy to encourage credit customers to pay on time. This is something that comes up a lot in accounting if you do accounting at school as well. So if we have people who owe us money, so customers who have purchased something on credit and they owe us money, we want to incentivize them to give us that money in a timely manner. We don't want them to become bad debts, which means that they will are not going to pay us, and the money that we're owed, we're never going to get that back. So this is about making sure that not only you get the money back at some stage, but you also get it on time. So credit customers have that period where they should be paying you. It shouldn't be taking months and months and months usually. So a credit policy can incentivize that on-time payment. It could involve giving discounts to people if they pay earlier. It could also involve penalties if they pay late. So charging interests on late payments, for example. And then also part of a credit policy can be looking at the creditworthiness of customers before you actually offer the credit to begin with. Because if they don't have a good credit record, they usually don't pay on time, or they usually don't pay at all, then perhaps you don't want to offer them credit to begin with. Now, human resources, this is all about people. So human resources repositioning strategies are all about the employment cycle. So that consists of acquisition, getting your employees, development, so training the employees up to be fit for the role, maintenance, so making sure they are up to date. Training is usually an ongoing process in any business. And then separation, if the employees do end up leaving, then that's when they separate from the business. So some human resources repositioning strategies could be changing the interview and recruitment process. So maybe there are ways that can be streamlined or improved in some way. I know in recent years we've had companies like Woolworths are using artificial intelligence to do the recruitment process now. So instead of having phone calls and in-person meetings to determine who will be hired and who won't be, you've got AI technologies that are helping with that instead. So the whole interview process would go through an online system, and the AI would help to make that a lot faster and to save the business money. And another potential strategy, offering rewards to employees. So if you want to reposition, then maybe you want a better reputation with the way that you pay your employees. Maybe you want to keep them satisfied. So giving those bonuses and those pay increases can ensure that happens. If you want to avoid separation where employees go elsewhere, those can be good strategies to ensure that they are incentivized to stay. Now, our last 2 key business functions, we've got marketing. So market repositioning is all about appealing to a new or wider market. So you can rebrand, you could alter your promotional strategies, or you could even expand your range of products or services to capture that wider demographic, that wider audience. So maybe you would seek celebrity endorsements, for example. That's something that we see all the time now with social media influencers and things like that. So that's a market repositioning strategy in that marketing function. Keep in mind that some of these strategies can also be used even if the business isn't repositioning. So just because a business is seeking those celebrity endorsements doesn't automatically mean that it's repositioning. It could just be a normal kind of thing in its strategy. But sometimes when a business is in that decline phase or that post maturity phase, it specifically needs to look at avenues in that marketing realm to appeal to new people, and celebrity endorsements is one of those. Attempting different promotional techniques or developing a memorable catchphrase can also be potential strategies. So trying to use those marketing strategies to appeal to new consumers. Maybe a business wants to show that it's more sustainable, more environmentally conscious, and perhaps it would create some kind of catchphrase to reflect that, with the view that that would be appealing to a wider target market by capturing those people who value um, that idea of sustainability in business. And lastly, we've got operations. So operations repositioning is about improving productivity and including minimizing expenses, refining quality, using technology, and keeping up with demand. So that example that I gave before about Woolworths and using AI in that recruitment process, it also is something that falls under operations too. So you can see that there are overlaps here as well. That was a HR example, and it's also an operations example because it is how the business is running. It's a strategy that is impacting the operations of the way that the business does things. So some examples of repositioning strategies: you could develop an app, and so of course that can give better customer experience. It gives you more of an ability to keep up with competitors who may have similar things. And you could also relocate or conduct a minor expansion or renovation to whatever shop front or whatever facility you may have, even warehouses and things like that to make things faster. Perhaps all those big companies that have lots of logistical kind of things they have to figure out. So companies like Woolworths, like Amazon, that do lots of shipping and lots of transportation of goods, that kind of thing they may reposition by having those expansions to better to improve the offerings that they have. So something you may be wondering is what the difference is between rebranding and repositioning. So rebranding is probably something that we've heard of before, and it's relating specifically to the marketing function that we just spoke about. And so if a business chooses to reposition in the market, rebranding may occur as part of the strategy. Like we just saw, marketing is one of our 4 key business functions, but there are the 3 other ones as well. And those other 3 are falling under the banner of repositioning as well, but not under the banner of rebranding. So repositioning has that greater scope and it can impact all 4 business functions. It doesn't have to, but it can. So human resources, marketing, operations, and finance. Now, some examples of this, if we look at Virgin Australia as our case study. So back in 2020, when it was struggling with the voluntary administration, um, it changed its fares, which is a finance repositioning strategy, and reduced flight offerings. So not having as many flights or as many flight paths. And that's an operations strategy, something that the business is doing differently with the way that it runs. So you've got two things there, and that makes it repositioning. Um, in in opposition to that, we've got rebranding. In 2011, it changed its name from Virgin Blue to Virgin Australia. We can see those logos there, and you may remember back in the days of Virgin Blue. But that is purely a marketing strategy. It didn't impact those other areas of finance and human resources and things. So that was just rebranding with that niche of marketing. So influences on repositioning, we've got plenty of these. And one thing that we can think about here is sustainability. So lots of businesses are going to pursue minimizing those negative impacts that humans have on the world. We see that more and more these days, with sustainability being something that's always at the forefront of business news. So, um, this is all about thinking about future generations during that strategic planning and still meeting their own needs as well, though. So, um, with sustainability, you have that balance between needing to make sure that the business is still running, is still doing well financially, but you're doing all of that while being sustainable. So we've got all these different sustainability strategies we can think about in all of these different spaces. So human resources, we've got career planning, employment growth opportunities, and outsourcing. Marketing, we've got product packaging, innovation, and prioritizing relationship marketing. Operations is something that we probably think of first when we think of sustainability, things like reducing emissions and minimizing waste. Um, Management, we could have globalization opportunities. Corporate social responsibility is a big one as well that we'll look at shortly. And finance can also come into this as well. So, a common misconception with sustainability is that it's only about the environment, and that's not true. So, there's actually different layers of sustainability. Environment is definitely one of them, but you've also got the social aspect of sustainability as well, and um, you've got other elements in there too. So keep that in mind when thinking about sustainability, because yes, we do hear a lot about, for example, car manufacturers wanting to reduce emissions, um, and lots of government organizations as well wanting to reduce emissions as part of their political strategies. But you want to be sustainable in terms of society, so that can factor in things like health and that kind of thing as well. Sustainability is about that long-term viability as well. So, corporate social responsibility, which we just mentioned then. So, this is this idea that businesses are expected to contribute constructively to society, and that can happen in multiple different ways: economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic. And this is called corporate social responsibility. So oftentimes when people hear this, they probably think of philanthropy, so being a good corporate citizen, making donations, and all of those sorts of things. But it does have these other levels as well. And we can see in this diagram here um, some of the levels as well. So the bottom half or the bottom section is required by society. So we need businesses to be profitable because without that, then it can't be a business anymore. So that's the requirement. Legal responsibilities as well. You have to obey the law as a business. And so this is about right and wrong. Of course, if you're doing the wrong thing in business, then you can have lots of problems. And so those two things are a requirement. Then we go up a level to what's expected by society. So ethical responsibilities. Do what is just and fair and avoid harm. So if we think about the treatment of workers, fair wages and good working conditions, and all of those things that are under that ethical kind of banner, that is what society expects. It's not necessarily a requirement. Of course, there are businesses out there that do the wrong thing, but it is what most people expect from the businesses that we have in our society. And then desired by society, which is that philanthropic element um, of donating, of even fundraising, of supporting different causes. So you've got the really base things that are just operating a business that's financially viable and obeys the law. You've got operating a business that's ethical and fair. And then you've got that step up at the very top where you're looking at actually giving back as well. So some influences on repositioning. So ethical standards are the series of moral-based principles a business is obligated to comply with. And so complying with these is about preserving those relationships with stakeholders. And remember that stakeholders can be anyone who's impacted by the business or who impacts the business, can be customers, suppliers, um, the government, all of those different people who are in the mix. So things like fairness, respect, confidentiality, and trustworthiness are some ethical standards that may be present. So large corporations often elect to acquire or merge with a post-mature business to further expand. And so a merger is when two or more companies join to establish a new business. They're merging together to create something new. On the other hand, acquisition involves a business purchasing another organization as a whole. So it's not joining together to create something new, but it's one business having significantly more power and being able to fully purchase that other business. So both of these things are some influences on repositioning. So the ethical standards, the acquisitions, and the mergers. So let's have a look at some examples of acquisitions and mergers. So back in 2022, Qantas acquired the remainder of Alliance's shares. So it already owned some of Alliance Airlines, which we have here in Australia, but it acquired the remainder of those, so it now fully owns that business, just like it owns Jetstar as well. And so that is one business, Qantas, having a lot more power and being able to fully purchase the other business outright. Whereas the merger option we have here, Afterpay and Touch Corp. You may be familiar with Afterpay. they merged to form a $500 million company called Afterpay Touch in 2017. So that is where the businesses are both going to come together to create something new. So you can see that they've got that new business name that's incorporating both businesses in there. And they would merge because of some kind of mutual benefit that they're going to get from that as well. Some more influences on repositioning. So, public relations centers around using free promotional techniques aimed at improving a business's reputation and fostering those jointly advantageous relationships between the business and the market. So, we want everyone to be benefiting in this public relations relationship. Crisis management is the process of handling a negative event that wasn't predicted, it wasn't expected in any way, and it's a series of strategies to minimize the damage that the business suffers as a result. So, a very good example of that is Dreamworld. So, they had a crisis back years ago now where they had the malfunction of the Thunder River Rapids ride, and that wasn't handled as well as it probably could have been by Dreamworld and the parent company, Ardent Leisure. So that is about making sure that you're balancing between taking responsibility for the fact that something has happened that's really awful under your watch, but then also not taking responsibility in the sense that the investigation hadn't happened yet. They weren't sure what caused the issue. So that's where public relations comes in, and you need to manage the situation to try and make sure that the business doesn't completely suffer as a result of that crisis. So you've got something to remember with public relations. There's the misconception, I suppose, that it is all about just helping the business, promoting the business, and that kind of thing. But remember that idea of it's jointly beneficial for both the business and the customers or those other stakeholders who are involved in that relationship.